How would you assess the general ambitions of Häcken at this moment in time?
The ambition is to win the league, really, because it's still possible to win the league. The money difference in the league is not that big so far that it's not possible to do that. So the ambition is to win the league. When we do it, I don't know, but it's every year the ambition is there again to win the league or the cup. The ambition is to win the league because it's possible.
The words of Sonny Karlsson, the former sporting director of Häcken 5 years ago on the Nordic Football Podcast. And I was listening to that this week and the hairs on the back of my neck kind of stuck up because I found it quite almost emotional, actually, because Häcken have now won their first ever league title in the Allsvenskan. And really, that's what this show is about. The big talking point of the show is we've got a new champion in Sweden, haven't we? Jonathan, welcome to the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss, and as always, I'm joined by Jonathan Fadugba, who went out there to Sweden 5 years ago, sat down with that former sporting director of Häcken, Sonny Karlsson. It was a great interview, and he said that the ambition is to win the league title, and they've done it.
They've done it, Steve. Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Nordic Football Podcast. We do say we do like to be ahead of the curve on these things, but that was 5 years ahead of the curve. Like you said, Steve, obviously, when Häcken confirmed their status as champions of Sweden this past weekend in Gothenburg, in the derby, I listened back to that interview with Sonny Karlsson and reminiscing, Steve, we were reminiscing about that interview 5 years ago when I went to Gothenburg and I met Sonny Karlsson, sat in his office at Häcken, went around the training ground. I did a little tour, and he did say in that interview, the goal is to win Allsvenskan. Like you said, it was a bit of goosebumps, hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Like you just said there, Steve, I sent it to you, and I said, that needs to be the intro pretty much, didn't it? We discussed it, and founded more than 80 years ago, BK Häcken. Never have they won the title in their entire existence, founded in 1940, and they've done it. We will put the whole interview with Sonny Karlsson up just for anyone who wants to listen on YouTube, because I think it's a great listen. Listening back to it is just really fascinating to sort of see the ambition he had. Because do you know what, Steve? When I listened to it back, I was actually thinking to myself, I didn't even challenge him on winning Allsvenskan, because in a way, I thought it was a bit ridiculous. Like when he said it, like, do you know what I mean? I didn't even.
Do you know what? I'm actually thinking of putting the whole episode up because you were recording that from a laundry room in a hotel in Sweden. I was talking about Kopparberg ciders, and it was kind of a throwback, actually. I can't believe it was 5 years ago, but it was a great interview and actually a great episode. So, but yeah, you wouldn't. I mean, looking back, I think at the time we were kind of not laughing at it, but we're like, oh, it's just not going to happen, is it? It's just not realistic. But it just shows you with a belief and a will. And I suppose in a way, it's not. We should almost have seen it coming. Perhaps they're such a well-run club. Just shows you.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about what actually happened and how they won the league. If you listen to last week's episode, we talked about the chances that they could win it. They went to Gothenburg. Well, they're part of Gothenburg, obviously, but they crossed the bridge, went to play their biggest rivals, EFK Göteborg, in the derby this past weekend, the Gothenburg derby, and they knew that if they got a point in EFK's back garden, they would be champions of Sweden for the first time ever. They didn't just get a point, Steve. They absolutely destroyed them. 4-0 away from home in EFK Göteborg's own stadium, Gamla Ullevi. A massive changing of the guard, in my opinion. It's a shift in power in Gothenburg football. A hugely momentous day. Sven-Göran Eriksson was there, a sort of EFK, a bit of an EFK legend. They had all the legends there to watch this. And the mood in the camp from EFK was like, we cannot let this team win in our own stadium, the title. Well, they didn't do anything on the pitch to stop it because Blair Turgott scored the opening goal within a few minutes. Then Johan Hammer, Mikael Rygaard as well, and just a sensational win in their back garden to win the title. But yeah, Steve, as I was just saying, sort of in terms of Sonny Karlsson, they call him Mr. Häcken. And he's the man. He's been a player at the club. If you listen back to the interview, he's been a player at the club. He's managed the club. He's been the sporting director of the club. He's built this foundation. I'm sure you're going to ask me how they've done it, how they managed to build this team. But he left, and as he said in that interview, the goal is to win Allsvenskan. And really, I remember I said in the interview at the time, because they'd finished second in 2012, and that was considered like a massive achievement. That was almost considered the ceiling. And when Sonny says that in the interview, he says, we can win Allsvenskan. Like you said, I just kind of, I kind of just brushed over it. I didn't really address it. I thought in hindsight, when you listen to yourself 5 years later, I was thinking I should have challenged him on that and said, why do you think you could win it? Or, in my mind, I was like, why didn't I ask him properly, or maybe just ridicule him a bit in terms of, come on, you can't really win Allsvenskan. But it shows that they had the vision and they knew what they wanted to do. And, they've been in the periphery, haven't they, Steve, of this podcast for all this time. Anyone who's been listening to this show regularly knows I lived in Gothenburg. I lived in Hisingen. They were a club close to my heart. They're a club that kind of have been we've talked about them a lot. They're a very small team. We could say, is this a Leicester City type thing? But ultimately, they've organically built themselves into champions for the first time. And the scenes on Sunday when they won the league were really it almost, Steve, made me play my hand a little bit in terms of I was really genuinely happy for them, and I really wish I'd been there. I always like to say I'm impartial in this podcast, Steve, but I have to say that's the closest I've been to feeling like a supporter of a team in Sweden, purely because of how well they did and just the fairy tale story.
I've actually just put on screen here for Jonathan. You won't be able to see it on the podcast, but the predictions that we made at the start of the season in the preview show. And you actually got Häcken down in 8th place for a prediction. The media had them 9th. The season before, you actually did predict them to win the league, in fairness. So you just one season out. I mean, what sort of changed this season, do you think? I mean, I know you've put a lot of credit to the manager, but and they've only lost 2 games of football. They were unbeaten away from home. But what would you say? I mean, last season, I think they fair to say they underachieved. They should have got more points, just whatever thing. A lot of things didn't go their way. What's been the big change from last season to this season that's got them not just obviously up there challenging, but then it's got them over the line?
I think the clear, obvious change is Per-Mathias Högmo, and we're going to have to definitely talk about him. He has earned his place in Gothenburg history, BK Häcken history. They were calling him Per-Mathias, the Messiah, at the stadium. So when they won the game, they went back to Hisingen. There was a massive party, big fireworks, and the traditional when teams win the league in Sweden, Steve, they wear these sort of gold hats. And everybody sort of dances around, and that's what they were doing. They were sort of wearing the gold hats, and I think Jeremy sprayed himself in gold paint as well, and was sort of dancing around. And it's been like a gold weekend for any BK Häcken fan. I've seen so much on Twitter, fans just saying this is like the greatest day of their life, that kind of thing. It's a massive thing for this club. Okay, they might be a small club, but they have a very passionate fan base, loyal fan base, and I think that. Even in that Sonny Carlson interview, he talks about how they don't really have many fans even outside of Hisingen in Gothenburg. And he was saying about the challenges to get more fans. Well, this is one way that they're going to be able to get more fans, isn't it? But the clear difference, Steve, is Per-Mathias Högmo. He joined them when they were bottom of the league. We predicted them to win the title. I predicted them to win the title last season. There was a lot of teams, media predictions saying that they could win the title. They had this really good squad, Steve. They've built organically over the years. They've been quite good in recruitment. Sonny Carlson and the new sort of sporting director as well, Eriksson, he's done a good job. And the 2 things they've got right, I think, this season, the recruitment has been excellent. They've really nailed this recruitment. If you look at the team, they've got the 2 Gustafssons in midfield, Rygaard in midfield. All of them are new signings. Rygaard, arguably player of the season, I think, in Allsvenskan this season. The Dane, he's been phenomenal in the centre of the park. Showed it in the derby. He was instrumental. Played EFK off the park in midfield, along with the 2 Gustafssons. You've got Blair Turgott. I think he's been a fantastic signing. Picked him up from Östersunds when no one really wanted him. He was thought to be going to Saudi Arabia at one point. Thought to be going here, there, and everywhere. He scores to win the title. Yeremiev, they got him back from Germany, and he's been phenomenal. The recruitment has really been, they've got a solid spine. They've got the Larsens as well, Lund. The fullbacks have been phenomenal. They're playing, but yeah, like I say, Steve, Hogmo's the one who's melded it all together. He's played this sort of phenomenal style, sort of a 4-3-3. And the good thing about this team, Steve, is they're a brilliant football team. You know, they play a modern style of football. They are a hugely refreshing Allsvenskan outfit. You know, there's been a lot of teams that I've said a few times on the show where, you know, the AIKs of this world, with no disrespect to them, or maybe Malmo at times, a bit kind of one-paced, a bit plodding at times. Okay, they're solid. Sometimes it's obviously enough to get the job done in Allsvenskan and win the title. But I think Häcken have always, for the last 2 or 3 years, played this sort of modern, quick transitions, good wing play, you know, get forward quickly, get crosses in. And that's the style that Hogmo has just perfected in the team this season. Don't forget, Hogmo's last job was a club job, was Fredrikstad in the 3rd division of Norway. You know, this Norwegian has come in and basically revolutionized the team, taken them from bottom to top. He's molded it. And I think the key thing, Steve, you asked me what's been so good about them. The Gothenburg derby summed it up for me. You would have thought there'd be nerves in that match. You know, the way that this a team that's never won the title in their history. You know, we all remember Kevin Keegan's Newcastle. You know, we all remember those sort of good, entertaining sides. But when it comes down to it, they can't handle the pressure.
Exactly.
And I have to be honest, I wasn't sure if they could handle the pressure. You know, for many weeks I said I thought Diff would probably win the league as the season went on, because I just didn't see them being able to go to like Malmo.
I didn't either.
Go to AIK. Steve, look at the last 6 or 7 games of the season. They went to AIK, won. They went to Djurgården and won. They played Malmo at home and won with 10 men for nearly half the game. They go to IFK Göteborg and they batter them 4-0. And that lack of nerves, that maturity, is why they are champions. And that has come from Matthias Hogmo. And it's been a club effort. They've grown, like I say, organically. The recruitment's been spot on. They've been growing for many years thanks to the Gothia Cup. But ultimately, I think Hogmo's been the difference in this season in terms of what he's done with that team.
Well, I certainly doubted them at the weekend. I said on the last show, there's no way that IFK will let them win the match on their own turf or even get the point that they needed. And I've got to be honest, from an IFK Gothenburg point of view, I think it was a bit of a disgrace. That is not good enough. Their fans are absolutely embarrassed by that. I would sack Mikkel Stara just on that result alone.
You wanted him sacked last week, didn't you?
There's several reasons why I think I would personally sack Mikkel Stara, but that's not good enough from their perspective. Fair play. But they didn't even have Yeremiev, for crying out loud. They scored 4 goals. I mean, that is insane. They've had injuries this season. I mean, Benny Traore, Youssef has been out a lot, hasn't he? They've had, I think, a couple of others have been out for significant periods. So it's not been plain sailing. It's not like everyone's been fit. But, you know, fair play. I mean, one thing you will say, that I guess there weren't any previous scars or anything, which that can help a team when they've never sort of lost it before, bottled it before. But to come through the way they've done has been pretty damn impressive. I think Djurgården did help them out by going on that random losing streak. But and I think the big result was obviously the 1-0 win against Djurgården in Stockholm. I think it's one of the few games this season that they've actually lost the XG numbers significantly. They somehow kept a clean sheet, and I think Diff's XG that game was over 2. But you know, they won that. Then they got the 4-1 win against Sundsvall, which I think got their attack force firing again and giving them belief. So we'll move on something soon. But in terms of like the tactical approach for this team, then you say 4-3-3. They've been an entertaining watch. They're not boring, are they? A good team for a neutral to see. It's not exactly anything revolutionary, is it? But it seemed to suit this bunch of players, this squad.
Yeah, and if you look at it, you know, in terms of the tactical side of it, you know, we've got a partners Y Scout. We've got another blog. You've done a fantastic job, by the way, Steve, on the Y Scout blogs in recent times. But in terms of the partnership with Y Scout, we have access obviously to their data. And if you look at the Y Scout data for BK Häcken, the best dribbling side in the league, 836 completed dribbles, by miles the best team in Sweden in that sense. And that's what they kind of are. They're a team that gets shots in, gets crosses in, gets a very good 1v1 situations. They attack in fast transitions. They're not a possession-based team. They're one of the lowest teams in the league, actually, or sort of mid-table anyway for possession. They're not really interested in that. They're interested in a sort of modern style. You know, when you think about teams like maybe Man City, Liverpool, teams that are aggressive on the front foot, high pressing, get the ball back, go forward as fast as you can, get numbers into the box from wide areas, and be good in 1v1 situations. That's what they're good at. They've scored the most goals in the league. XG is by far the best in the league. 66 goals, 64.07 XG. Second best Malmo, 58.19. So comfortably in terms of XG, they've bossed it. Comfortable in terms of, as I said, 1v1 dribbling. The second in shots, second in touches in the penalty area. But yeah, that's the kind of style that they like to play, Steve. They've been actually quite good at set pieces as well, I think, this season. Better than they have been in previous years. I think they've got some of those little tactical things correct this year. Defense has been better than it's been given credit for. It's not been amazing, but when they needed to keep sort of shut teams out, they've been able to do so. Häcken have always been quite a flaky side in terms of defensively, and that's always let them down.
It's improved a lot in the second half of the season, the defence, I must say. Looking at it statistically, I think most of their clean sheets have come after that 4-4 draw against Elfsborg. It was like the penny dropped. After that, they didn't concede more than one goal very often.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you just got to look at their transfers. I think a big part of this was their transfers. You've got to look at Häcken from a financial point of view. They've had since that 5 years ago interview in Gothenburg with Sonny Carlson. If you look at, I was looking back at some of their transfers, and they sold players like Patrick Wallermark for a massive fee. Their net profits in terms of transfers year in, year out are pretty good. And it's allowed them this season to bring in the likes of, the players that they've brought in. Totland, Tobias Sahn obviously didn't have a huge impact, but, probably on decent wages.
I think Hovland's been a great addition, by the way, to the whole squad since he came into the club. I think
Dennis, Mikael Rygaard, Ibrahim Sadiq's been really good, the young winger. I think he's had a very good, promising season. Lars Larsson. So they've been able to buy and sell very well. Don't forget Dalle Hurunda, someone we used to talk about a lot. They sold him for a decent profit to Groningen. So all in all, that kind of ability to sell players and bring really good signings in, together with that 4-3-3 system that Holmwell's been playing, has basically helped them win this title from a tactical point of view.
Yeah, I guess the question now is, is this going to be a one-off, a bit like, say, a Leicester City, or are they now going to be a team who are going to be always up there battling for, titles and medal positions? It feels like, is it the start of something, or is it just, the one-off thing? The manager himself will certainly attract attention for this title win, won't he? He's got a good reputation, a good name. This will only further enhance it. Can he? Will he stay in the job, do you think? Will someone tempt him away?
I think that there are already talks about Per Mertesacker maybe getting another job. He's been quite tight-lipped, actually. He said that he isn't sure what will happen, which is always a bit worrying. I think he's got another year left on his contract, and there's already been rumours that he's been courted by Malmo. Now, the interesting thing with Holmwell, obviously being a Norwegian manager, is he probably might not have any real loyalty to any Swedish club, for example. So you might think he did, you mentioned that the chance to play in the Champions League, of course, for the first time with Häcken is an appealing prospect. They might not get through the qualifiers, but they could at least maybe end up in the Europa League or Conference League, which would be an incredible achievement for them. And I think that will be an attractive thing for him. But the reality of the situation is that there are going to be a lot of clubs looking at a lot of their players, because wages wise, they're not a very rich club. Steve. Their average attendance is lower than 6,000, I believe, at the Bravida Arena, and it's a small stadium, very tight, and they're not a big club. So I think there's a rumor that I think Jeremejeff has a buyout clause that already comes into effect at the end of this season as well. People might look at him and say, fancy him, top scorer in the league, been phenomenal. So I think there will be a little bit of pressure. But in terms of will they be able to keep those players, and can they maybe match their new wage demands? But the one thing that we've learned with BK Häcken, Steve, is that they have the ability to bring in new players, even bring in maybe new managers. And I think the future is bright. I don't think this is going to be a Leicester. I think they could be sticking around for a while. if you look at them as a club, they're healthy financially. They have the Gothia Cup money that comes in that gives them that sustainability. They're a very good. They have a very good women's team as well. They've grown, like I said, year on year. They won the cup, and now they've sort of moved on and won the league. And I think that they will look at this. They can look very optimistically at the times to come. But I think inevitably, Steve, they will lose sort of 3 or 4 players in the next 3, 4, 5 months after the World Cup.
And they have free popcorn for kids, don't they, on match day? I seem to remember you saying, and they can play on PlayStations and everything and whatnot. But I mean, this is actually, of course, their maiden title, which is the first time they've ever won the Allsvenskan. It's not like a club that's won it before. I mentioned on the show last week, one of the challenges I gave on my Football Manager suggested saves video last season was take a club from Gothenburg to win the title, because only one club from Gothenburg in this century had previously won a title. One season that was obviously IFK. So, I mean, what does this mean to the club to finally get this monkey off their back?
Well, the man himself that we had at the beginning of this show, Sonny Carlson, when he was asked about this game, he wasn't actually at the game on Sunday. He said that he was too nervous to go, but he watched it in Gothenburg and then made his way down to the stadium and to celebrate with everyone else. He said, Steve, that apart from his kids being born, this was the greatest day of his life. And that kind of sums it all up for he's known as Mr. Häcken. And he has built this club from, like I say, from player to manager to sporting director. He passed the reins on to this new younger generation, Martin Eriksson and the other sporting directors and the new people who have taken over. And it's a huge, huge achievement, Steve. You can't. I don't think you can really overestimate how much this means to the Häcken fans and the people who support the club. Like I say, I think it was a really symbolic thing. You mentioned about IFK Göteborg, Steve. Actually, an interesting little tidbit from this game. After the game, IFK have been putting the feelers out to clubs about their players and manager. There's a feeling that they are keen to let them some players go, and they would also be open to getting a new manager. So I think Mika Stara's job is definitely on the edge. Former Häcken man, don't forget, he was a Häcken manager.
100%, I'd get rid of him. I think IFK need a manager who's a bit more modern and forward thinking at times. Stara, don't get me wrong, he's not that bad by any means, but he has his uses. But they need, I think IFK need a buzz around them. But anyway, we're talking about Häcken, so yeah, please continue.
You had to just dig in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, and one other thing we need to talk about is, they had a big, massive party after the match. Gothenburg was definitely in celebratory mood, at least one half of it. Tobias Sana was dancing on crutches. He said, "I will dance on one leg." Don't forget, he's the man that IFK let go after an argument with Mika Stara. They cancelled his contract and he went to Häcken. Had a minimal impact because he got injured, but he said, I don't care if I have to dance on one leg, I'll do it. They've been having massive parties. And one other just little thing that's interesting, Simon Gustafsson, by the way, and his twin brother Samuel said, we're going to go crazy. We're going to celebrate wherever we can. Both of them were carrying champagne bottles at this time. But yeah, one little nice little tidbit is Erik Friberg, the veteran. He's been at the club for so long, and he was playing one of his last ever games. He's going to retire at the end of the season, and it's sort of like a legendary player. His dad actually was a professional as well. And when he came on in the last few minutes of the Gothenburg match, there was a massive cheer for him, and it was a really symbolic moment of just a club legend. So, yeah, it's phenomenal for BK Häcken. I can't really praise them enough. Like I said on the show last week, Steve, I wish I was there. I would have really loved to have been in that game because I think it was genuinely a shift in Gothenburg football. And I think now BK Häcken are going to look to establish themselves as Gothenburg's number one club. Now, it's going to take time. Gothenburg IFK have won this title many times before, so let's not get crazy. But I think in the next 2-3 years, IFK are going to have a bit of a challenge to get the mantle back from BK Häcken, because I think BK Häcken could be here to stay, at least in the upper echelons of the league.
Is this good for the city as a whole? Is this almost going to be good for IFK that they need to start waking up again, sort of thing? And the city, in terms of its football clubs, has been a bit of a slump in the last few years. I mean, Gais, goodness knows what division they're in now. Or Greets, last time they looked, they're in a relegation playoff position. Is it the sort of, a really positive thing for the city? It might make people think, oh, Häcken will win the title. It might inspire some of the other teams to actually get their act together again.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it will change. It will change Gothenburg football, 100%. Steve. That's why I was so keen to be there. I think it's a genuine shift. To do it in your neighbour's back garden. And I said it on the last show that EFK fans are quite dismissive of Häcken. They looked at it as a bit of a joke club by a lot of people in Gothenburg, if that makes sense. They're not really respected, I don't think. And I think that's part of the reason that Häcken fans were so happy to win it in Gamla Ullevi, to go to like really announce themselves and be like, we're in your own house and we're winning the league. And I think that this will be like a massive challenge to EFK. It's a bit like Man City when they first came along and the Aguero moment when they won the title in the last minute. Obviously different circumstances, but that was kind of like, here we are to Manchester United, who were the dominant team at that time. And I think you could draw parallels with that. They've both made their money in very different ways, Häcken and obviously Man City. But, the core principles of it, that noisy neighbor type thing is kind of happening now. Finishing above EFK was always a bit of a big thing for Häcken, and even that was considered like, they didn't really get much respect for finishing above EFK. When you actually look at it resource-wise and in terms of like history of the club and stuff, finishing above EFK, even in the league, is a big thing for Häcken because they're significantly smaller. But to win the league and actually announce themselves as Swedish champions is a different level. And I think there will have to be a reaction from EFK Göteborg now because they won't be able to sort of sit back and accept this. They're too big a club to allow it. From the point of view of other teams, yeah, it will inspire other teams. I mean, Kalmar have won a title in their history. There's other smaller clubs that could maybe look at it. We have to say, Steve, this is a bit of an anomaly in terms of how bad Malmö have been this season. I think they've been horrendous this year. And is that going to continue? Maybe not. The fact that they might not even qualify for Europe means that maybe the money will be redistributed. Häcken are going to make a lot of money out of this now. Other teams getting into Europe could make some money. So maybe it will help redistribute Swedish football a little bit. But I remember us saying this last year, didn't we? This time last year, we were talking about Malmö creating a dynasty and sort of swallowing everyone up because they had so much money. So football changes really quickly. But I think it will boost Gothenburg football in general because now next season it's going to be even more tasty. The derbies, now there's going to be an extra edge to it. EFK can't disrespect Häcken anymore because they've won the league. It's like it will redefine things. Gais are in the third division. Hopefully, we'll come up to the second division.
I was going to say about Gais. I've done them a disservice there because they've already won the third league division already.
Yeah, they're already up. So they'll be back in the second tier, but they should be in the top tier really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Örgryte as well. They may well survive. They're actually out of the relegation zone for now. Utsiken are in the Superettan as well. Maybe it will be a good year for Gothenburg football again, apart from being an IFK fan, of course. But yeah. I actually think long term that'll wake that club up. I really think they're a big sleeping giant, and Häcken have made a statement though because they are now at the minute the top dogs in Gothenburg for sure to win the title.
Yeah, and the bottom line is it's good for it's good for Hisingen football, Steve. At the end of the day, the small region, the small island in Gothenburg, they are the champions, and they're not going to care about any other part of Gothenburg or any other part of Sweden. Really, they are the kings.
They certainly are. Okay, well done to BK Häcken, and we'll move on. We're not going to talk about too much else, but there is an issue to be, actually second place, before I move on to the bottom of the table. Djurgården have confirmed second place, and Hammarby as good as confirmed third place on goal difference. It's going to be between AIK and Kalmar for fourth spot, which could potentially become a European place if one of those three do win the Swedish Cup early next year. Of course, Malmö are going to have to win the Swedish Cup just to get in Europe. Simple as that for Malmö, and could potentially finish as low as seventh, which would be shocking for them. At the bottom of the table, Degerfors are going to need just 1 point to confirm their survival. They go to Malmö on the final day. Varberg are going to have to beat Sirius to have any chance of staying up automatically. Otherwise, they are going into the playoff game. And it's been, when we talked about them last week, Varberg, it's just all been going downhill for them this season. They lost 5-2 at home to Malmö. Degerfors could only draw 0-0 against Varnamo. It might prove to be a useful point. We don't know. But it looking like at the minute, I mean, it's a toss-up, isn't it? Because Degerfors, if Malmo are in the mood, they're going to struggle there, and it would leave the door open for Varberg, Jonathan.
Yeah, I did say that. I felt, how either Varberg or Sirius would get sucked into it.
You did.
And that was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I believe. And Varberg have got sucked into it. They've had a pretty poor run. They've lost 15 of their 29 games this season. They have lost 3 straight now, lost 4 of their last 5. I kind of feel like it's a tough place to go. Sirius in some ways. They can be quite good in the day. And I'm not sure Varberg are a really attacking team, if you know what I mean. They're not the sort of team that will go out there and try and win. You can't really predict their lineup. It's hard to predict that. But I feel like Degerfors will get out of it. They've had a massive blow this week, though. Degerfors, Nikola Djurdjic, who's come into some form, actually, although he was poor at the start of the season, but he's come into some recent form. He's out with a cruciate ligament injury now. I think that's a potentially massive blow going into the game. But you might think they may have enough to sort of get the job done. So we shall see what happens in that match. I think in terms of, if you look at the underlying numbers, I mean, Degerfors have the worst expected goals against in the league, apart from Sundsvall, second worst, sorry. Varberg, fourth bottom in that sense. So maybe they can keep a bit of a tighter defence. But ultimately, I just have a sneaky feeling that Varberg, actually, they're going to be playing Osters, I think, in the relegation playoff if it goes to it. And I don't feel like it's guaranteed that they'll actually beat Osters even over 2 legs if it was to happen. I feel like Varberg could maybe go down.
Yeah, congratulations to Bromma Poikin and Halmstad, your favourite team, one of your favourite teams, are back in the Allsvenskan. It looks a poor division this season. 48 points is all Osters are on. I mean, they've only won 13, drawn 9, and lost 7. If Varberg or Degerfors lost the playoff to them, I mean, I'd be very disappointed, I must say. But look, anything can happen over 2 legs, in fairness. And Varberg especially, just they have no momentum at all. You've got to think Degerfors, I think they were unbeaten in 10 games. Even if they lost to Malmo and got the playoff spot, Degerfors, I think, would probably have enough. They're in a good way. They're in a good rhythm. But Varberg, yeah, they're just a physical team a lot, aren't they? And yeah, it'd be a challenge. It's difficult, but we've seen sides have a bad run before and managed to win the playoff. So basically, ultimately, you just don't want to be in that position with the chance of going down, do you? So all to play for in that final round, Jonathan.
Yeah, all to play for. I think Degerfors have shown some good sort of ambition in the last few weeks. They've really gone for games. Obviously, they got a draw at the weekend in a 0-0, but I think that in general they've been quite offensive and sort of gone for it. Whereas I think with Varberg, they've just still been a little bit negative. They got smashed by Mjällby 4-1. Not the weekend just gone, but the weekend before that. Obviously, Malmo beat them 5-2. So they're sort of leaking goals for fun at the moment. It's not just that they're losing big. Obviously, Elfsberg 3-0 winners the week before that. They've even lost that ability to sort of do well at home sometimes. In recent seasons, their home form has kind of got them out of trouble. Hammarby beat them 5-1 the week before that. So, they are that's roughly more than 20 goals conceded in 4 or 5 games. So I do worry for them. I think they might struggle, and I think Degerfors will just about get out of it. I think if Degerfors, put it this way, Steve, I don't think Degerfors will go down.
No.
Even if they get in the playoff, I think they'll get out of it.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, definitely. We're going to talk about the teams in Europe in the second half, but before we move on, a question of Allsvenskan fantasy. Another season comes to a close, Jonathan, and in the Nordic Football Podcast league table, it couldn't be tighter. We have got 4, potentially 5 players who could win the NFP league this season. Frick Show is on 1,857 points, and Albin Johansson is just 1 point behind him. Sixten Enqvist is only 5 points off top spot, and Harold Lampus Karatsaz is only 9 points off the top spot, and a former colleague of ours, Sam Hart, on 1,827 points, could be a dark horse still to win it. So our Svenskan fantasy, I've never seen it so tight here. Last year's winner, the Rat Pack at Norwich, down in 6th. He's not going to be winning it this year.
Yeah, it's very, very close. Rat Pat, unfortunately, looks like, unless he has a miracle last week, he is at the outgoing champion. Some interesting teams. Obviously, Sam Storia, that's Sam Hart. Better Call Saul, that's Haralampos. Nabas Fisk Recept, that's 69th Fist. The Maggie, Albin Johansson, and Frick Show, Gerardo Lopez Lozada, who's always up there, isn't he, Steve, in our leagues?
He
both
is,
Norway
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sweden. Do you want to just read the Elite Serien fantasy table?
Yeah,
well?
certainly. Well, it's close to Elite Serien. We've got 2 rounds left, of course. Ronnie Ruff is top of our league, 1,938 points, East Action All-Stars. And we've got Vegard Broya. Not even going to try and pronounce his team name because it looks impossible. But he's on 1,918 points, 20 points off the top spot. OCD All-Stars, JS. He's always up there, isn't he? 1,910. And then we've got Lawrence Wong, Tactical Unit, 1,892. And just round off the top 5, Arndt Ansterud, Sitter Steel E. Barton on 1,888. I think the winner's going to come from one of them 5, I think, Jonathan, unless we've got like some mega chips still in play for some people. So it's all to play for in both of the fantasy leagues right now.
It is indeed. And good luck to them. Unfortunately for me, I have to concede probably defeat. Looks like Steve's going to beat me again in the Allsvenskan fantasy for the 2nd year running.
I'm going to have a massive
last year it
target
was 14 points, and this year it's going to be by a lot more than that. I've had a bad year. I said it before. Steve just seems to have someone on his bench who always comes to the rescue, but ultimately my defensive chip let me down this season. Use of chips hasn't helped me.
Well, I've still got a chip left, and I don't like the chip. It's the Lone Rangers chip. I hate about the chip is you don't have a captain. So I hope they change that chip for next year. I think it's a very strange chip, and really, I want to have a captain in my team. Simple as that. So I don't like that. I might use it the last round, but let's see. But the thing is, Jonathan, really, if you look at the difference between myself and you, it's probably I hit the park of the bus chip and it didn't come off for you. It's a lot riding on one week. Again, you could argue, it's maybe a bit of a wrong chip. You got 5 captains at the back. You know, it's Fantasy Premier League and Elite Serien, you can't make such headway in terms of a chip. So,
thank you very much, Hammerby and Kalmar. Let me down with my park of the bus chip. Hammerby drawing with Sirius and Kalmar losing at home to Mjällby. Both of you are in my bad books. Just one final bit of business, Steve, on Allsvenskan before we move on to Elite Serien. It looks like Andreas Brandstrom will be the new manager of AIK. The Mjällby boss has agreed to take over in principle, according to Aftonbladet, which means that he should be the next AIK manager. Now, you know, we've always talked about AIK being a bit of a, let's say, turgid team, maybe you could describe them as at times. And obviously Mjällby very well known for that defensive rigidity. So it looks like they're going to go to form AIK in terms of their game model, you know, very good defensively. And Brandstrom's been very good defensively at Mjällby. So it's looking almost done. Feels like it might be announced soon. Been 1 or 2 criticisms, people saying that they should aim higher. Maybe a bit harsh because I think Brandstrom has actually done very well as a manager to this point. He was also with Jens Gustafsson at Hadrick Split as an assistant coach. He's also coached Sirius, AFC Eskilstuna, Dalkurd, Hammarby under 19s. And it looks like Henrik Goitom will join him as assistant. So yeah, that could be an interesting one for next season, I think. And things are going to start moving for next season now, and I think in the next few weeks. But AIK look to have a new man.
This might be a good time to promote the latest Wisecout blog we have on the goalkeeper on loan at Mjällby, Samuel Brolin. I'm wondering now if that, you know, will he now become the number 1 at ICOR with that managerial change? Very interesting goalkeeper with a lot of potential, been linked with Ajax. He's a 6'7" monster, and he is the 3rd tallest player on the FIFA game this year, which is an interesting stat. I'm not sure quite who's taller than that, but he's a monster, and it's well worth a read on the White Scout blog, which you can see on one of our. I think it currently is the pinned tweet, but that might change. But Samuel Brolin, very interesting keeper to keep your eye on for.
Yeah, I know you love your keeper, Steve. He will probably go back to AOK. I think he might consider, especially if Brownstrom's there. He'll know him inside out. So maybe that was strategic. The final thing we just need to say heading into the last weekend of the Allsvenskan season. One final bit of business is probably a done deal, but Jeremiev 22 goals heading into the final day. Marcos Antonsson 20 goals. So golden boot race there. Jeremiev back from suspension. Will he get the golden boot, or will Antonsson maybe turn up and sort of snatch it on the final day? There has been late changes in these golden boot races over the years in Allsvenskan. I remember one year, I think it was Buya Toure nicked it on the final day. Ludvigson's on 12, Marcus Berg on 12, Niemann 11, just to round that off. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that as well. But looks like it could be a double for BK Häcken there to cap off their fine season.
So I've just actually looked at the list here of the tallest players in FIFA, and there's only 3 players taller than Samuel Brolin. We've got Abdul Bar at Auxerre in France. We've got Aaron Chapman at Motherwell in Scotland, both 203 centimetres to Samuel Brolin's 202, and an unbelievable 206 centimetres tall. He is a player. He plays in League One in England. See if you can guess this player, Jonathan.
What team?
It's a goalkeeper for a team in the southeast of England.
Yeah, southeast of England.
Or southern England, anyway.
I don't know.
His name is Tomasz Holy.
Oh, yeah.
Ipswich Town.
Yeah.
206 centimeters. That's about 7 foot, isn't it? What an absolute monster. He's the tallest player in FIFA. So, yeah.
You know who to call up. You know who to call up if your cat gets stuck in the tree then.
Yeah. Brolin is not far off those numbers anyway. After that useless piece of information. Or maybe not, depending how you see it. If you're into your quizzes and stuff, we will move into a break, and afterwards we're going to talk about the European adventures of everyone involved in Norway and Sweden this season, and a little bit into Eliteserien as well. So catch you very soon.
Welcome back to this episode of the Nordic Football Podcast. My name is Jonathan Fadugba, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Steve Wyss. Now, we're heading on to Norway in a second. Not too much to wrap up because there is actually 2 more rounds rather than 1 round left. So we might even have you for another week, Steve, on this show. But all to yourself, you can have the league all to yourself. But we should start in Europe. I will read out some of the evening's results because there has been some interesting results, and I definitely want to talk to you about one of them. So in the Conference League, just in terms of our teams, well, I don't know if we count Denmark anymore, do we, after football and DK's departure. But Silkeborg and Anderlecht 2. I think Henry has a new podcast which you can listen to, and I'm sure he will dissect that in great quality. But yeah, we still sort of count him as one of our own deep down. So, we're going to mention that score. Then we've also got, where are we? Diff, Djurgården 1, Shamrock Rovers 0. They topped the group with 5 wins out of 6 and 1 draw. Incredible from Djurgården. I did not see that coming.
No, I didn't either.
But massive result. Ghent 4, Molde 0. The Belgians have knocked out Molde from this group on the final day of the round of the qualifier. Molde somehow thrown it away, 8 points to 7, and will be out of the Conference League, I believe. I don't know if there's like other playoffs or whatever because they're so convoluted, but those are the 2 results, or the 3 big results in the Conference League. And in terms of the Europa League, a couple other results just to pick up on. Midtjylland 2, Sturm Graz 0. They are second in that group. Fair play to them. They've actually knocked out Lazio. Midtjylland, so that's incredible, really. Braga 2, Malmo 1. Malmo kind of do a Rangers and lose every single game in their group stage. 6 games, 6 defeats, 3 goals, 11 conceded. Absolutely, what a way to cap off a terrible season for Malmö, basically. Losing every single European match. And then Glimt won, PSV Eindhoven 2. Arsenal also won that game 1-0 in that group. So Buda Glimt finished third in that one. Steve, what has gone on at Molde? I can't believe that.
It's a disgrace, to be honest with you, Jonathan. This whole group, for me, Molde on paper, pound for pound, are probably the best team in terms of quality. But they've only ended the group with 2 wins over Shamrock Rovers and a 0-0 draw at home to Ghent, which is just simply not good enough. And they got completely outplayed against Ghent tonight. Deserved to lose. And the scoreline reflected the fixture. But really, the damage was done beforehand, I would say. They should have beaten Ghent in the first match of the group at home. That was a 0-0, which they just couldn't get the better of them in. And then I don't know what happened against Djurgården. I feel like twice they definitely shouldn't have lost twice to them. In the second match at home, they were 2-0 up over Djurgården. And Djurgården came back to win that game despite only having like 3 shots in the whole game or something. So if Molde had won the match last week, they would have qualified. That's where we let it slip, because Djurgården had already qualified themselves. So it wasn't as if they had much to play for. But there's been some strange things going on in Europe the last couple of weeks. I'll be honest, across the whole board, there's been quite a few really disgraceful performances from teams. And at the same time, there's been some weird dynamics where teams that have got nothing to play for have suddenly put a cat out the bag and actually put up a decent resistance. And I don't get it. It's Europa League and Conference League do my head in sometimes, Jonathan, because you just don't know what state of mind teams are in. You don't know what the physical state teams are in. But in Molde's case, it's very simple. They have had the last 2 months to focus on this competition because they've had the league wrapped up for quite a long time now. And I just don't get it. They literally could have put all their eggs into this basket, and they haven't been good enough. It's inexplicable, Jonathan. It really is. I'll give you just the only comparison I can think of. There's been times in the past where PSG in France, sometimes Bayern Munich, they've been so far clear in their own league, and you think, they can really focus on Europe now. And it just hasn't happened. And it's almost as if the opponents in Norway have just been lying down so easily for them that whenever a test has come and something different, they just haven't been able to deliver. I just can't. I can't get my head around it, mate. I just can't.
Yeah, there's been some comment. A lot of interesting comments on Twitter. Rosenborg fans in particular, very lively in that on Molde's page tonight. Seems like there's a bit of a budding bromance between Djurgården and Rosenborg. One comment from a fan says, massive. This is the tweet underneath their 4-0 announcement of the result on Molde's Twitter account. Someone has written, a lot of Djurgården fans have gone on there laughing. And one Rosenborg fan replied, huge respect from RBK fans here. Good job. Hope Djurgården goes far in Europe. So bit of a bromance. I mean, Molde quite hated, Steve, because there's a lot of pretty nasty comments here.
Yeah, I was going to say they are the most hated club in Norway now, and a lot of it stems from the Saar incident. You remember our old friend, well, not friend, but with the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer situation there.
Yeah, we'll brush it. I don't know.
Well, that's where a lot of the animosity comes from. That they're just not. And of course, when you win things, you become hated as well. But right now, I can't think of a more hated club in Norway than Molde.
Yeah, but a lot of Djurgården fans. I mean, don't know what's gone in the 2 games they played each other, but it seems as if maybe a lot of Djurgården fans have come to rub it in. So it's an interesting one, that. But yeah, no, I suppose it doesn't really. They're out of Europe completely, aren't they? There's no qualifiers. No
players. They're out there.
That's it. They're done.
It's game over. And
for Djurgården, I think they can look optimistically towards the last sort of rounds. They've been really, really good in Europe this season.
I think they definitely became inspired in the 2 matches against Molde. They wanted it more, and I definitely think in the home match in Stockholm, the crowd had an effect in there. But fair play to them in this group to win 5 out of 6 games, and they're into the last 16 already. They've bypassed the next round. That's a heck of an achievement for them. And who knows? You get they could go on a run. And it's actually quite good to see, I must say, from a neutral perspective. I got this group completely wrong. I was right about Ghent. I don't think Ghent are actually that good at all, to be honest. They've only played well in one match, the whole group, and that was tonight. But it was Molde who gave them the opportunity to do that. And, the last match of the season, home crowd right behind them, they're inspired to qualify. But I don't think they're particularly good. I think Bodø/Glimt, they're one of the 8 teams that Bodø/Glimt could face now in the next round. So in a way, I hope that Glimt get them, and I hope that they teach them a lesson. But Molde, I think it's really, really poor from them. They should, at very worst, have got out the group. They should have won the group. For me, they're the best team in the group on paper. So absolutely,
you sound a bit like Michael Owen there.
Not good enough.
You sound a bit like Michael Owen after he said that Liverpool are the best team in Europe after they just lost the European Cup final. I'm calling them the best team, but
they were on paper. I think they're the best squad. But
yeah,
and they're not qualifying, so it's not good enough, is it?
Yeah, well done to Djurgården. That's massive. We'll see who they get. I think also, well done to Glimt. I mean, it's not easy in that group with Arsenal and PSV Eindhoven. I think that's they've given it a credible.
Yeah, just a word on Glimt here that they could face one of 8 teams: Fiorentina, Anderlecht, Lech Poznan, Partizan Belgrade, Dnipro, Ghent, CFR Cluj, or Basel. Now, that looks, I think they could beat all of them apart from Fiorentina myself.
Mm.
So, yeah, they have got
they've been a bit wobbly, haven't they? I mean, and that takes us on to our next point, which is this weekend's result. I mean, what's gone on this week in Norway?
Yeah, Bodø/Glimt lost against Rosenborg 3-2. It was a big win for Rosenborg. It felt like a statement win for them. They were making a big deal about this. First time they've beaten Bodø/Glimt in this sort of Glimt era of not dominance, but when they've been up there. Glimt have struggled in the second half of the season with the playing in Europe, the qualifiers. And let's just not forget that a lot of these were Champions League qualifiers, so high-class matches. And they've done well. They're still in their hands to finish second in the table, which might be important because there's a chance with Norway's coefficient that they might be a second Champions League spot available. We don't know yet. A lot will be, calculated at the end of the season. So second place might mean more than normal here. But a big win for Rosenborg because it does secure them now in third place. They got themselves a medal spot. If they get one more win, they're in a good position now for that. And really, it was a good game of football. Actually, the XGs in this game were quite low. There was a couple of good goals and, full crowd at the Lerkendal Stadion. And look, all year I've been quite high on Rosenborg. I actually predicted them to finish second. They still might finish second. I don't know long term whether the garden is rosy or not. There's still things they need to fix. But this was it feels like a big win for them mentally, definitely. But they definitely were facing a Bodø/Glimt side who were wounded after just playing Zurich in Europe. And, it wasn't all brilliant. That outplay them or anything. It was just a close game. Yeah,
fantastic stuff. And I think the other sort of big talking point really was probably the, as you mentioned, the fact that they could finish above Glimt.
Yeah, they could.
In that second place. I mean, I haven't looked at the coefficient, but 54 points for Glimt with 2 games to play, 53 points for Rosenborg, so that it's really tight there. And Lillestrøm still with a chance there on 50 points, just falling out of the top 3. But, it's not over yet until the weekend goes. Let's just wrap up with a look at the bottom of the table because some great news for our friend of the podcast, Tom Dent at HamKam.
Yes, HamKam beat Sandefjord 2-1 to secure their survival officially for another season. They are now 8 points clear of the bottom 3 with 2 games to go. So I would like to offer my personal congratulations to the club and to all of the coaching staff at HamKam, including Tom Dent, who, they're 13 draws out of 28. And I often criticize teams that draw, don't I, on not just this podcast, but anywhere that I'm tipping teams and stuff. Draws don't usually yield success, but in this instance, they have. They've done enough to survive this season. They've had a game plan all season to make themselves quite hard to beat, and it's got them over the line. Fundamentally, that quite a strong defence. Only 38 goals conceded for HamKam. It's one of the best defences in the league, actually. has been the cornerstone to their success. They don't take enough chances, but it's something they can build on now. I know their objective was just to stay in the league, so mission accomplished in that respect. It was a close sort of game against Sandefjord. Sandefjord definitely had chances in the match, but the pressure's on them right now. They didn't take the opportunities, and I think HamKam were due sort of a 50-50 game to go in their favour at the crucial times of the match. They did take their chances for once. And a big moment for them, big celebrations, big relief for them to secure that place in the Eliteserien for another season. And I think it's deserved. I think it would have been harsh if they finished in the bottom three myself.
Yeah, massive congratulations to HamKam, Steve's favourite team, obviously being nicknamed Meat Man. Any team with ham in it or pork, I don't think there's any football teams called pork, is there? But if there's any pork-related teams, you'd be all over it. Or beef. I'm trying to think. Is there any beef teams?
There's got to be somewhere in South America, probably, or Asia. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
There's probably.
Tweet us if you know any meat-related football clubs. I'm trying to think now, off the top of my head. Sausage, no. Chicken.
Well, Tamworth Football Club are nicknamed the Lambs, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I think there is a chicken team, isn't there?
Somewhere, I think. Yeah, I've heard of it somewhere. Yeah. To know, Jonathan.
Anyway, more importantly, Steve, what is actually the name of the HamKam manager? Because we talk so much about Tom Dent, but there's actually a manager in charge of there. That we
the name of Jakob Mikkelsen, who has quite a decent resume down the years. I think he was quite a good hire really for HamKam. He was a manager of good reputation, and I think they have been well coached. I think you can tell they've had a good organizational setup this season, hard to beat. I've not been involved personally very often with them in terms of betting because they're not the sort of team that I like to get involved in. They've had the most under 2.5 goal games in the league. So I prefer getting involved with teams that have got terrible defenses and score loads of goals. They're the complete opposite of that. So I leave them alone most of the time. In terms of tactical setup, they're quite different compared to most of this league. It's been a high-scoring league, like I said. There's been some shocking defences on show in 2022 in the Eliteserien, but HamKam have been different in that respect. And to be honest, if they'd taken more of the chances at times, they probably would be looking more about sort of 8th and 9th place now. I don't know. There's still 2 games left. They might get a couple of wins and end up a bit higher. But a big win for them. Terrible loss for Sandefjord, though, who are under massive pressure now. Christiansen won 4-0. And Jerv, incredibly, is still in the race to survive with 2 games left. So I really am starting to worry massively for Sandefjord. And I'm starting to think that the incredible great escape, it would be one of the greatest ever escapes I've ever seen in my life. Christiansen, it's on for them. It's on.
It's on indeed. 2 games to go. 4 points separate Sandefjord, Christiansen, and Jerv. All to play for. Games coming up. Sandefjord, final 2 games are against. Just read it out quickly. Their last 2 games are against Molde away. Good luck with that. And Haugesund at home. So they could potentially fall out of that one. Excuse me. Christiansen have got Salzburg away, Jerv at home. And Jerv, obviously, they have got that game, which will be a massive one, I think you could imagine. But they've got Rosenborg at home first before they go to Christiansen. So we shall see. We'll be back with another episode to talk all about that later.
They've got to win that game. They've got to beat Rosenborg, which I think Jerv will get relegated this week. And the playoff, we've actually had a result in the playoff in the second tier already. Sandnes, unfortunately, been knocked out by Kongsvinje. I was actually hoping Sandnes would win the playoffs. They're an interesting club in the southwest of Norway, near Stavanger, and a big rivalry with Viking. Nice new stadium. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Sandnes are knocked out already. Kongsvinje now will play against K from Oslo, and the winner of that faces Start. And the winner of that will have the 2-legged playoff against the club in third bottom of Eliteserien. So I've got to be honest, I hope Start don't come up. I've said on this podcast before, I don't really like that club much. They're very much yo-yo, quite boring club. It'd be nice to see a different team come up again. So K from Oslo or Kongsvinje, I'm definitely hoping that they get into the... To be fair, if Christiansen do make the playoff, I think it'd be actually quite good to see them stay up. It would be a miraculous escape. But I
think you said that about Jerv last year, didn't you? You said you didn't want them up. So I mean, you're
But I don't want to start. We've seen Start before, haven't we? And I've criticised that club before. Just look, I do not sit on the fence. They're not a club I like that much. It's awful to say that.
Yeah.
But I want to see someone different this year. And to be fair, Kongs Vinny or Kay from Oslo would be.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll leave it there. I think we're running out of time. So thanks so much for listening to the Nordic Football Podcast. I really appreciate your support. We will have a Patreon episode this week. So keep it tuned, patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast to wrap up. How can we do? Can we end the season on a high in that 2 more rounds to go? But that'll be it for now. I think on Twitter, you can find me at JFFootball, JFFUTBOL. Where can we find you, Steve?
At Meatman Soccer.
No doubt bemoaning one team or other.
I'll be bemoaning someone. I will be bemoaning someone. And I've been quite vitriolic recently as well. So
yeah, I've definitely noticed
there's been some very strong.
I don't know if it's because Elon Musk took Twitter over, but you've definitely ramped up the anger. But yeah, so go there for all the hot takes. We'll be back next week, hopefully, or in weeks to come. But thank you so much for listening. Again, congratulations to BK Häcken. And go to our YouTube channel, YouTube Nordic Football Podcast. You will find the Sonny Carlson interview from 5 years ago, where he lays out the blueprint for how BK Häcken will become champions. And that is exactly what they've done this past week. So take care, everyone. Great to hear from you as always. Great to have you listening as always. And see you soon.